Hi everyone. In our previous session, we have spoke about the virtual machine and virtual machine scale sets, the configurations involved in it, and the features involved in it. We didn't go in depth about a virtual machine generally because whatever has been covered in an AZ 104 point of view, we have tried covering it. But the further concepts you will definitely be seeing in terms of networking point of view as we keep going on in the further concepts you will be hearing more on the networking part of a virtual machine or whatever the configurations we can configure on a virtual machine from the networking angle. All that we could see here. And then in terms of monitoring, also, you will be able to see it. The rest of the ones, when we are trying to cover the majority of the ones in the storage and in the identity and all that, we have tried seeing some subset of features from virtual machines. But this is it for as of now in terms of compute point of view. The questions which you could see in interview or in the certification point of view, I tried to give it in a minimal way. So if you're trying to keep a 2 years experience or something like that, the minimum number of questions or the concepts which you could see coming in are the ones which I've already said. And we will right now jump into Azure App Service. Now, if I talk about the way we are trying to progress is in virtual machines, we have tried focusing on infrastructure as a service. That means you have more responsibility even when you're trying to uh, utilize the cloud service that is virtual machine. End of the day, you are the one who is going to configure networking, a virtual networking point of view. You are the one who is taking care of how the system is going to be highly available. You are going to take care of the data part, data protection part, and how securely you can able to access your machine. So there's a set of responsibility which has been laid out in virtual machines, and that is comes under IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Now, in this next concepts, we are trying to jump in, which is app service. It's more focused on uh, PaaS offering, platform as a service. Now, what is platform as a service? Says that you only take care of hosting your web application in that or application, whatever it is, application in that, and the data that is generated by that application is also your responsibility in how the service is getting updated, how the underlying OS functionality or the runtime, everything getting updated. I will take care of that. How I can manage and all that. You can give me certain inputs like I wanted to use a .NET runtime, Python runtime. That's how Azure is trying to sell this Azure app service, where they're trying to say that. See, you don't need to work on more on the maintaining or managing the cloud infrastructure. You can only focus on hiring your developers, working with the developers, generate a good web application code, and push that application code into the app service. And whatever data that is generated, take care of that. The rest of the part, where in terms of the OS runtime and the high availability and the patching, updates, everything, and networking and all that, we will take care of that internally. We will make sure that that will be secured, is how Azure is trying to sell. Now, that's called SaaS offering, where your responsibility in terms of managing your code and the data that is getting generated is your responsibility. That comes as an example. So most of the scenarios, you have to understand that in most of the trainings or most of the interviews, most of the individuals will try to talk more on the virtual machines. But if you are trying to talk about an app service, if you're trying to talk about container instances, if you're trying to talk about container apps, if you're trying to talk about Kubernetes, if you're trying to talk about data, uh, what do you say? How do I keep it? Uh, Data analytics or Synapse analytics, data factory. So there are some PaaS offerings which you can majorly use And using that, you will be able to uh, uh, convince the interviewer that you are you are aware of some majority of the concepts in a short. So I want you to, why am I saying this reason is, I want you to focus. If you would have focused some quality amount of time on learning what is IAS and IAS concepts, I also want you to equally focus on some good amount of hours on PaaS offerings, and you know what it is, how it is to be done, and what are the configurations which are there. You will easily be able to crack interviews because I'm not able to just say like this because I've seen of individuals who have seen trying to talk more about pass offerings, they will be are more high. The reason is because the interviewer itself has a minimal knowledge on pass offerings and the configurations which are involved in it. The lot of time is being spent in the first initial services, and as we keep going on, the further concepts, these are being missed out. And if you try to focus on this, they're pretty much easier only. Only thing is you need to get acquainted initially with virtual machine and the way you work and all that. And slowly from there, if you are able to understand how the pass offerings are working and what is the intention of it and what are the configurations which are involved in app service point of view, what is differentiating between a virtual machine and an app service, what is differentiating between this container workloads or the container services to PaaS services. So this makes a lot more things easier. And please don't get confused that container services are also called as PaaS offerings, but we term right now because of the vast uh, uh, what do you say, evolution of the crowd itself, the way they consume the services and all that. Right now, they are being termed as container as a service. But still, if we go with the fundamentals point of view, we would refer that there are IaaS, PaaS, and there are SaaS, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And they still come under the subset of the PaaS point of view. Enough of the introduction. Let's go with the app service, how it looks like. So let me create an app service. It's going into the Azure portal, and I'll try to create an Azure app service. Click on web app, click on create web app, and I need to have a subscription, and I'll just mention compute RG, and I'll just mention web app 01. This is not available in Canada Central. So I'll just look at it and I will just say demo web app 01. And here, I would like, how do I wanted to host my web application? Means how am I going to publish my web application? It's through the application code and the runtime. Here is through .NET code or through Java or through Node.js or PHP or Python, whatsoever. So I'll just use at this point of time ASP.NET. And for ASP.NET, the operating system that is available is Windows. So what is the point is, if you would have configured your .NET runtime in the Linux and you would have generated a build file for your application, which we call it as binary file, end of the day, and using that only you will be end of the day able to publish an application and all that. So once, because what is the difference between a code and a binary file? Let's be very simple. Programming language, whichever you're writing, is for writing in the way you can understand. But computer or the device itself, the CPU and all that, will not be able to understand that language. They understand zeros and ones. Now, when you wanted to make that understandable in zeros and ones, you will have to convert the programming language which you have written into a binary file. And so that's where runtime helps in being that medium bridge where it will understand what programming language you have written, like not what programming language, the programming runtime language. So if I use the runtime.NET, so I have to write my code in ASP.NET programming language. And when I wrote that, it will convert that into a binary file, and that binary file can be understood by the OS to run it in a proper way in the application point of view. So when I wanted to publish this, I wanted to use the code, and I'm saying the runtime stack is this. And where, in which kind of operating system did I able to generate an binary file? Is it in a Windows or a Linux point of view? Based on that also, things do change. So here at this point of time, I'm going with Windows because for ASP there is only Windows. If I would have choose .NET, I would have used a Linux OS also with a .NET runtime and would have generated binary files, or I would have used Windows and I would have generated. So most of the cases, you will have issues if you are not selecting the OS properly. Now, uh, you may have questions. జనరల్గా మనం పాస్ ఆఫరింగ్ అన్నప్పుడు నేను ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్స్ ఏం సెలెక్ట్ చేయను అని అనొచ్చు కదా. అంటే యూఆర్ ట్రైంగ్ టు సెలెక్ట్ వాట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్. You're not getting what is it's a Windows Server or a Windows 10 or a Windows 11. Ilaga, you're not trying to or Ubuntu 20 point, 24 point. Alaga, LTS, you're not trying to choose what type of OS version and what the exact OS model ఇదంతా కూడా చెక్ చేయట్లేదు. You're just saying the type of the OS, it's a Linux or a Windows and all that. And the region, we selected that. So the app that is getting created will be created in a data center of Azure in central India location. You can prefer any other locations. At this point of time, I'm leaving central India. So this is the first level of concept which is involved. So I'm creating a web application, which is demo web app 01. And there I'm saying it's a .NET runtime and or ASP.NET. I'll leave it as ASP.NET. Now came app service plan, pricing plans. So if I refer provision app service plan, now what is an app service plan? You're saying what type of web application is what so far you have mentioned. It should be a ASP.NET and it should be Windows and this one. But did you choose the configurations, the server CPU configuration, memory configuration, the actual hardware configuration? Did you choose that? So far, no, we haven't chosen. Because you just running web app is not just sufficient. You need to tell how much level of configuration you want to purchase. You want to rent, not purchase, you want to rent it. Okay. The storage and all that, and the features, sub features which are involved in it, how much amount you wanted to use. Now that is called app service plan. Okay. And this is called app service or web app, whatever it is. Now, under this app service plan, you can create as many web apps if you wanted. Okay, but you have to ensure the more amount of web apps you create, what is going to happen? Like you have a two-core machine, your laptop. You end up creating lot of installing lot of games, lot of softwares and all that. What is going to happen? Your machinery are going to get stuck isn't going to function properly because it's overloaded. Now you can increase your machine from 2 core to 4 core. Now just that is going to help. No, if you're using a 4 GB RAM, you have to increase it to 8 GB RAM. Okay, if you're using to octa core, then you have to increase it to 16 GB and all that. So you have to focus on the memory, the CPU, the storage, everything, the data transfer rate and all that when you wanted to go for higher spec. Now, similarly, the reason why you will need a higher spec and all that based on the web application traffic, the amount of traffic which will come to your application. See, if the company is paying you huge amount of salaries, that means you understand that that is just their point, not 1% of their the expenditure they have to do or 0.5% of the expenditure they have to do. That means they are generating 99.5% or something revenue. That means the amount of traffic which they continuously get every second that is generating, and how much amount of traffic is they should not lose any request error. Do you often see when you go and hit any website, do you get 40 not found? Okay, I am not able to reach the server. Any issue like that or latency and all that? No. Based on that experience only, you will end up using the site more thing. Let's assume that you are going to a shopping web application. The more lower it is, you will end up not going to that website and you'll choose some other website where you can get the searches and the feeds and uh, the page, more number of products and all that. Based on that only you will be. So more the complicated the application code looks like, then you will end up needing different set of complicated hardware. And that's where we, as in previous session, we were trying to talk about what is the purpose of a VM size, where we have a general purpose VM. There is a storage optimized VM, memory optimized VM, compute optimized VM, graphical per unit focused graphics point of view. There is an confidential VMs. There is an high performing performance VMs and all that. So based on the application request, so who will come up with all this one? There will be different architects. App architects will be the ones who will be deciding all these factors, and they will tell you that we would prefer so and so in that basis. Uh, so let us see this. Central India, where I wanted to create an app service plan, and the pricing plan, if I explore, that is standard. So I can choose. So if you there are based on the pricing configurations, if you see, the pricing will be changing for higher configurations and all that. But the higher the configurations, you would see the features also are changing. If you see standard S1, we have one core CPU with a memory of 1.75 GB, and remote storage, which they're giving is 50 GB, and the availability they're promising is 99.95%, and the amount of cost which you have to pay per month is 6,680 INR. So more number of instances, which per instance, that's what they have said, per instance. That means you can create app service plans to increase more number of instances and all that. And that's the concept which is involved in scaling. How do you scale an app service plan and all that? But so if you're increasing the instance count, so that means you will have 5 instances. Let's assume that you increase the app service plan to 5 instances. That means you have 5 CPUs, uh, 5 into 1 CPUs, 5 into 5 into 1.75 GB of memory, 5 into 50 GB of remote storage, and all that. And you'll end up paying equally the same 5 times of the cost. So that is it. And so you want higher spec like 32 core, 250 GB of memory, and 250 GB of remote storage, and 99.95 SLA, and you end up paying 3,46,000. The advantage here is you're not going to work on configuring more on the how the machines availability, everything is going to be taken care. You are only worrying about I then work with my developers, generate a good application, publish that into my app service, and see that everything is working very well or not. That's it. And the data that is generated is your responsibility. So this is what is. So here, app service plan is helping me to choose the configuration. I'm going to choose at this point of time a free tier. Yes. Save this. Now, if I choose a free tier, I'll end up not able to utilize some factors. So then I'll choose a standard S1, which will most of the times give me all the features which were available. So here for standard S1 also zone redundancy option is not given, which will give us more availability and all that. So I can create a database to for my machine, and that is a separate charge. The more the database you wanted to choose and all that, and you can use an Redis cache, which is for memory. You don't want app service to be working on and bringing down its performance. You wanted a separate Azure cache, which will store hold the cache and which will improve the app service performance and all that. You can go ahead and do it. I'm not choosing anything at this point of time. I can connect my app service to GitHub platforms or Azure platforms. What is this about? This is trying to say that if you are, uh, what do I, if you are trying mm, to focus on developing the application and all that, you will use DevOps platforms. There are different DevOps platforms. Azure DevOps, we call it as ADO. GitHub, GitLab. You can connect, they are saying that you can connect the Azure DevOps platforms to your app service, or your app service can connect to that platform, so that you will end of the day follow a DevOps process to plan how to develop, and you will develop it, and you will try to generate builds using your CI/CD pipelines, and using those pipelines you will push your binary files into the app service plan or into virtual machines or Azure Kubernetes service, container workloads, whatever it is, functions, all that things. Now they are trying to say that you can go ahead and connect your app service to that, and these options which we are not trying to choose right now, not needed, and basic authentication and all that. Public access, enable public access is about how do I enable my how do whether do I want it to have my app service to be available to internet or not available to internet. So there are two kinds of cases. Most of the times, the app service is utilized for public internet point of view. Some of the applications, they may be running internal applications. See, the code that was developed by the company is only for an application which is used internally. Then they wanted to make it available only in their network. If that is the case, then they will be removing the public access, and they'll directly integrate that application to to their internal network. And that's where they're trying to say that connect it to your virtual network. So how do you integrate that and all that? So at this point of time, you may not need to know everything, but as you're trying to right now focus on the subject called app service, we are getting to know this. So what is the most complicated things which is happening while you're trying to understand this? If you wouldn't have focused on, if you would have focused something like virtual machine, I'll create it with a username, password. I will log in using an RDP session or SSH session. Then you will have the trouble in understanding all these concepts. Instead, if you would have understood that a virtual machine needs a NIC, a disk, OS disk. It needs a and the VNet is being created, and that IP address is being given to a NIC, and that is important in terms of a private IP address and a public IP address, and the reason of communication. Why do and what is the purpose of an NSG? What are the features which are there in terms of increasing the size of the machine? What is about stopping it, and what is about starting it? So if you would have looked at that point of view and understand each of the purposes, these concepts would be easier. So, so when you're trying to learn about those simple services, the concepts which are involved in it, understand their purposes, and when you start going through over here, you will start correlating. Those will become the fundamental concepts for these services. So that's the challenging factor. That's why it's a kind of a tougher topics as we keep going on, but not really. If you would have tried to enhance the skill set of the IAS understanding, the PaaS services are much more easier in generally in terms of IAS. And the reason is because your responsibility is lesser in terms of managing the infrastructure. And the lesser is the responsibility, you will end up doing lesser of the activities to troubleshoot and perform certain actions and all that. That's the realization. So, but it all depends on the conceptual understanding, which you first gathered in the fundamental services or the basic first initial services like IAS, and that makes your job easier in the understanding the rest of the aspects. Now, coming to monitoring and securing. Uh, if we want to monitor an app's application, we will use Azure Monitor. And Azure Monitor is the most of the utilized monitoring solution to monitor all the services in Azure. But if we talk about app insights, application insights, it's also a subset feature, but this is specifically designed. Application insights is designed to specifically monitor an Azure app service, which will give us more in-depth insights on how to manage our web application. And because we want to understand what is the latency, how many server requests are failing, how many much traffic, customer traffic is coming in, uh, how much is the consumption of the CPU of this app service. Should we increase it? We have increased the instances to 3 instances. Even then, the CPU is increased. CPU is still running higher. Should I increase my memory, or where when I choose to increase more amount of instances, are my errors, service requests or errors are going down? Now, what type of error comes? So they will ask you this kind of questions. When I receive an error, how do I troubleshoot? Now they're going, then you have to tell that, you go into the application insights, you go and check what type of error code you have received. Is it a server side issue, or is it what type of, is it an authentication failure? Is it a session failure? Based on that, we actually follow the next subset of set of actions and all that. So App Insights is helpful on that purpose, and they're trying to say, we can go ahead and create. No, at this point of time, we are not choosing that. That's a by default option that they're saying that if you're creating, we'll enable it by default. But I choose not. I don't want it. You can enable Defender for App Service. Defender for App Service is going to help you monitor your application continuously. Okay, to not to are you facing any threats? Are you facing any attacks? Anything of that sort. Even when Azure is trying to be the one which is ensuring the app service is running, but you are exposing your app service to public network. What if someone is using a bot, which is nothing but bot is like a software, and that software will end of the day send 10,000 requests in a second. Now you have configured your web app to take requests of 1,000 service requests per hour, per second, and because of that, you are already paying some 2 lakhs per month as a rent. Now, someone is sending 10,000 requests. What is going to happen? The service will crash. Means the more amount of requests will be failing, and one particular software from from one computer is sending that request. That means your real customers will be sending up requests from their own laptops and they will not, their request will never be taken by server. Even they take 1 in 10, because if let's say the 9,000 requests are coming and 1,000 requests are from customers, and you can only take 1,000 requests per second, that means you will only 10 out of 10 customers, you will only be able to provide service to one customer service request. The rest of the service requests will be failing. What this is called attack. What type of attacks? That is called DDoS attack, denial of service, distributed denial of service. So they can, there are ways the hackers will try to hit the service, and they're going to, so the lot of customers will get that ransomware attacks, So they will ask, the organizations will ask, see, we will bring your server down. Uh, Instead, you pay us so much amount, this much amount of money, so that we will not get into this huge ruckus of bringing your service down and all that. So, so as if they're, what is the point of, if they start doing this kind of things and they acknowledge the people, whoever are playing with them, they people will start keep coming in the flow and all that. So most of the companies, 95% or 98, 99% of the companies wouldn't comply the request, and instead of that, they will make sure that their infrastructure is more secure with the services they can use. And Defender for App Service is a service provided by Microsoft, where they're going to continuously monitor your app service and going to point out and give you some insights, what happened, all that. I can go ahead and create an app service. Let me create it. So I've made you walk through on the most of the configurations while creating an app service or web application. Now after the creation of the app service, let's go and check what more configurations can we see when the first web application. If you have any questions, please post in the chat section. So first service which got created is this one, an app service plan. And if you see the app service plan, the resource type is Microsoft.web server forms is the app service resource type. That's how the app service plan resource type is been called, Microsoft.web server forms. And if I go into the app service plan, this is how it looks like. What all web applications are running in that app service plan. At this point of time, I only created one web application named Demo Web App 01. If I wanted to attach more, I can attach more. I can change my configuration of my machine, app service. I can scale it up to increase the more to if I wanted it and all that. If I wanted to scale out, I can even scale out, bringing so what is the scaling out and concept and all that. If you remember, I was trying to say the configuration is like one CPU. Where is that? Mine is right now a standard app service, which is the one CPU with 1.75 GB RAM and all that. And more amount of instances which I wanted to create, that once is all in the scale out option. So here they are trying to say right now, the current scale out option which you have is the current instances which you are holding is one instance, and that is of one CPU with a 1.GB, and you can increase that kind of instances to 10. So 10 into one CPU. So each 10 instances with one CPU each and 1.575 GB of RAM and all that you can utilize. And that's what they are saying. And this is a charge which you'll incur for per service. If you're increasing more number of instances, you can do it. Now they're saying how it is a method. If you wanted to manually scale, you can manually scale it. Okay. If you wanted to increase it, you can increase it to a number of instances. Or you wanted to go, not instead of manual, you wanted to go and uh, based on the specific metrics, like more amount of CPU and all that, specific app metrics point of view wanted to increase and all that, you can go and configure a rule-based metrics and all that. So at this point of time, we are not choosing all these things, but that is what is there in the app service and the file system storage. So they are giving 50 GB of storage, right? Remote storage option. And you have only utilized at this point of time 9 KB networking option. Now you didn't integrate it to any VNet or any other uh, uh, hybrid environments and all that. So they were not going to talk about it. Monitoring solution, you can configure anything. So most of this is app service plan. This is more on the configuration part. So you're not seeing anything. Most of the specs you will be able to see it in web application. In a web app, you will be able to see what are the deployment slots which are there. We'll get to that one. Deployment slot is a concept which is there. We will talk about that later on. But you wanted to link it to any DevOps tools, whichever you wanted, you can mention that. Uh, what is the authentication method? You can link uh, your app service to an managed identities and all that. Uh, Also, what else? Sorry, identity is the one where you can link your app service to managed identity and all that. Authentication, it's more around connecting your app service. Because if you're running an application and that application wants to is making certain authentication and authorization and all that, you can connect your app service to uh, the identity provider and all that. Whether it could be anything within the Entra, Microsoft Entra is an identity provider. You can connect to it, or there are other identity providers which you would have organizations would have hosted in their on-prem environments or in other cloud environments where you can link that one here. So those concepts are there, which are way beyond than the discussion in the Azure administration course. So we will not touch. The custom domain is a topic because if you see this web app service, this is the URL, this is the domain name URL through which customers can access. So this is the web app application code. So they have given a default homepage where it is trying to say your web is running and waiting for your content. So if you post your ASP.NET application code inside that app service, web app and all that, it will be showing up, that entire thing will be showing up. So in the next demo, we'll be talking about it, how to do a deployment and all that. But do you see the URL? Do you think this is how most of the URLs are there in the organization? If you wanted to see, you want to go to shopping websites and all that, the URL domains will be different, right? Okay. Now, as you want customers to utilize the domain names which you have purchased, so you will go to GoDaddy or some domain register company websites and purchase the domain URL from there, and you will register that here. Okay, you will record that. So you will register your custom domain, and that's where they were trying to talk how to map your DNS name, that is your domain name which you have for your company, how to register that or link it to the app service. So you have to go to the custom domains and add link to that. This is not needed buying an app service domain and all that, so they are providing, but still it comes with a certain thing. So you organizations instead will prefer to register from their domain names and all that, because the management and maintaining that will become easier. What else? You can, so this is HTTP certificates which you have to. If you see, every company will have, this is HTTPS. That means the communication which is happening between me and Azure is happening in a secure channel. For that, they're using a certificate. The site has a valid certificate issued by trusted authority. Okay. Now, similarly, when you are hosting your application and customers want to access it, if they have to communicate through HTTPS, then you have to register, create your certificate and upload that, so that that is a SSL certificate. Using that technology, the encryption of whatever request comes in and response goes out from the server, that will be encrypted, and when it comes back to you, you will be it will trust it will it is knows that you are the right person, and based on that it will decrypt and show you the exact web content which you're trying to access from the browser. As simple as that. Uh, but for that purpose, they will upload your certificates, SSL certificates and all that, so that customers can access websites through HTTPS communication. Otherwise, to HTTP, then it is not a secured one. A man in the middle attack can come in and all that. So most of the everything, 95% or 98% of the websites which you can see are all HTTPS traffic. And they will have, every website will have their own certificates, which all you can see. So these are options which are there, web jobs and all that. We will slowly get into that part. load testing if you wanted to. So how will you test your applications, which is running in the app service? You wanted to see whether the configuration one core CPU will help, or two core CPU will help, or 10 GB of memory will help or not. You want to do a testing on that one. For this they are saying load testing and all that. What is the apps? So from which configuration is this web app being hosted? The app service plan is this one. So that's what they're trying to talk about. So their deployment tools and all that development tools. So through this only you are able to push your code and all that. And if your application will end of the day can interact with other APIs. APIs are nothing but smaller set of softwares which you have created or the organization would have created to do some specific set of functionalities. So, and most of the organizations will have that API management platform, and that will be linked to their app service and all that. So these are all the health monitoring stuff. Application Insights will give us the app insights, insights and all that. I didn't create it, but these are the configurations which are there. Now, along with it, you will have many other things, environment variables and all that. These are equally important, but as when you start understanding about a more on the development point of view, how to code and how an application is generated, you will understand slowly. At this point of time, it is not needed. So it's sounding too much, but end of the day, if you look at an app virtual machine and you try to go through the same details for a virtual machine, this would have become a flow and this would have made your journey easier. So I would want you to previously look at the previous videos like storage account and virtual machine and disks and all that. When I'm trying to talk about virtual network, I would have shown the details, but the details are different. The configuration specs and everything, the way you want to utilize a PaaS offering, an IaaS offering, or a container as a service offering or a database as a service offering, you will be different. Obviously, that's what is the service. They each serves for a different purpose. You have to understand the spec. So too much information for today. Try to go through what all these things are. We will focus on once in the next topics in clear about these ones. We'll try to deploy an app service. We'll try to increase that one, and we'll try to configure network settings. We'll understand deployment slots, all these things. Okay, so thank you. Try to delete the ones which you have created.